So I want you to think about your day yesterday.
Oh, this is always a dangerous exercise.
Right. But seriously, think about it. And not the idealized version of your day. Not the one where you sit down, open your laptop, and just produce this uninterrupted stream of value.
Yeah, the completely fictional day.
Exactly. I want you to think about the actual reality of those 8 or 9 hours. Because according to the data we are looking at today, almost half of that time, up to 40% of your average workday, it just completely evaporates into the ether of busy work.
40%. I mean, it is a staggering statistic when you actually pause to process it.
It really is.
Yeah.
You're likely spending a massive portion of your life just moving information around instead of actually doing the core function of your job.
Right. You're just updating a project status.
Or summarizing some chaotic to-do list for your team. Or, my personal favorite, sending that just bubbling this up to the top of your inbox eval.
Oh, I hate that email. But yes, it is the absolute definition of administrative friction. And when you aggregate that 40% over a month or a year or an entire career, the amount of lost human potential is just, it's wild. We are looking at a fundamental misallocation of cognitive resources on a global scale.
The misallocation. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
People are hired for their strategic thinking.
Yeah.
Right, their creativity, their specific expertise, and then they are immediately bogged down in the muddy waters of just daily workflow management.
Well, welcome to the deep dive, because our mission today is highly specific. We want to help you reclaim that 40%.
That's the goal.
We want to take you from being a passive worker, like someone who's just reacting to the endless incoming flood of routine tasks, and transform you into an AI-empowered strategist. We're going to build a bridge right over that administrative mud.
But making that transition, it requires a pretty crucial shift in mindset. And honestly, more importantly, it requires a very specific set of tactical skills.
Right. And to build those skills, we have an incredibly robust stack of sources for you today. The primary text we're looking at is a comprehensive lecture guide from a group called B10X.
Yeah, it's titled Day-to-Day Productivity Boost with AI.
Right, which is basically a masterclass in the actual software tools you can deploy right now. But before we even touch the software, we are pairing that with a masterclass document directly from Google on prompting best practices.
Which is so important because the pairing of those two sources, it really forms the foundation of what we need to discuss. It's a two-part equation.
Okay, let's unpack this. What's the first part?
So the first part is entirely conceptual. It's mastering the language of how to communicate with artificial intelligence. That's the art and science of prompting.
Right.
If you bypass this step, I mean, none of the software tools will actually save you time. And then the second part of the equation is applying that language to the right AI tools to automate the chaos of your workflows.
So we have to start with the language before we can apply the leverage. I see people stumble on this constantly, by the way. They get access to a powerful, large language model, and they just treat it like an omniscient oracle.
Oh, all the time.
They type in this vague, one-sentence wish, like, write a marketing plan for my company. And they expect this brilliant, nuanced masterpiece to just pop out.
And when it spits out generic garbage, what do?
They get frustrated. They write off the technology completely. They say, oh, AI is a fad.
Right, because they assume the AI has intuition. They assume it somehow knows the historical context of their business, the subtle tone of their brand, their specific target audience, all simply because the software is labeled smart.
But the reality of the architecture is quite the opposite, isn't it?
Completely the opposite. You have to conceptualize the AI not as an oracle, but perhaps as an incredibly fast, highly capable, but completely blind librarian.
The blind librarian. Okay, I really like that.
Think about it. Imagine standing in a library that contains every single piece of text ever written by humanity.
Okay, I'm picturing it. Huge library.
And you ask the librarian for a marketing plan. Now, because they are blind to your specific needs in your context, they will just run into the stacks and bring you back the mathematical average of every generic marketing plan ever written.
Which is going to be incredibly boring.
Exactly. It will be technically correct and completely useless. They can fetch any information instantly, but only if you provide the exact, precise coordinates of what you are looking for.
Which brings us directly to the Google framework. Google has broken down the structure of a perfect prompt into 4 core pillars.
Right.
Before you try to automate your schedule or write code or anything, you have to master these 4 pillars, which are persona, task, context, and format.
Let's examine the mechanics of each of those because they matter. The first pillar is persona. This is where you explicitly tell the AI what kind of expertise it should draw from. You are giving it a role to play.
Like, act as a senior financial analyst specializing in renewable energy markets.
Yes. Or you are a ruthless, highly critical copy editor.
Oh, I've used that one. It hurts my feelings, but it works.
It does work. Then the second pillar is the task. This is the core instruction, and it needs to be anchored by a specific action verb.
So, like, are you asking it to draft an email or extract key themes?
Exactly. Compare and contrast. Generate a bulleted list. You have to be specific about the action.
Okay, so the third pillar, and honestly, this seems like the one people skip the most, is context.
It absolutely is.
This is the background information the blind librarian needs to succeed. Like, who is the intended audience? What is the product? What are the limitations? What happened in that terrible client meeting yesterday that led to this request in the first place?
Yes, and if you withhold that context, the AI will just invent its own. And I guarantee it will almost certainly be wrong for your situation.
Right.
Finally, the fourth pillar is format. How do you want the final output to be structured?
Do you need a markdown table, a 3-paragraph memo, a Python script?
Exactly. Because if you do not specify the format, the model defaults to a standard, usually very dry, multi-paragraph essay format.
The AI essay voice. We all know it. Let's make this incredibly concrete for you listening. The Google source material provides a perfect example of all 4 pillars integrated into a single cohesive prompt.
It's a great example.
Here's how it reads. You are a seasoned advertising writer. There is the persona.
Right.
Create a concise tagline. That is the task. The washing machine gets clothes extra clean, has 25 settings, and fits in a small space.
Which is your context.
Yep, there's the context. And finally, the tagline should use an active voice and be no more than 6 words. That is the format.
When you look at that prompt structurally, it leaves virtually no room for the model to wander off course. Every single variable is locked down.
But I do want to dig into the underlying mechanics of that first pillar, though, assigning a persona.
Okay, let's do it.
Because when I type, you are a seasoned advertising writer, does that actually change the way the AI processes the data? Or is it just like a stylistic parlor trick?
It is definitely not a trick.
It just feels a bit like making the AI play dress up. Like, is it really doing anything substantive under the hood?
It absolutely changes the underlying mechanics of the output.
Right.
And understanding why is so key to mastering these tools. We have to look at how a large language model actually functions.
Okay.
It does not think in the human sense. It operates on a vast, multi-dimensional web of predictive text. It maps the mathematical relationships and probabilities between billions of words and concepts.
So it's constantly calculating what the most likely next word should be based on its training data.
Precisely. So when you give the model an open-ended prompt without a persona, say, write a tagline for a washing machine, it searches across its entire unconstrained web of data.
Right, the whole library.
Right. It traverses the most common, highly trodden neural pathways. It gives you the mathematical average of all human text related to washing machines.
Which is why basic prompts sound so incredibly robotic, bland, and generic.
Exactly. It is trying to find the middle-of-the-road answer that satisfies the statistical probability of the prompt.
It's trying to please everyone, so it ends up saying nothing interesting at all.
But when you introduce a persona, when you explicitly state, you are a seasoned advertising writer, you are aggressively setting mathematical constraints.
Oh, I see.
You're telling the system, ignore all the probability pathways related to technical repair manuals. Ignore the pathways related to casual text messages between friends. Ignore academic engineering journals.
So you're forcing the model to narrow its vast search space and only traverse the specific neural pathways associated with high-level persuasive marketing copy.
Yes. By constraining it with a persona, you force the model to adopt the vocabulary, the syntax, the cadence, and the problem-solving frameworks of that specific profession.
Wow.
It fundamentally alters the predictive weighting of the words it generates next.
So setting a constraint actually frees the AI. You are cutting away 99% of the noise in its database, so it can focus purely on the signal you actually want.
That's a perfect way to summarize it. The persona isn't just an overlay. It's literally routing the AI through a different, highly specialized sector of its own architecture.
Okay, so we have our structure locked in. Persona, task, context, format. But even if you perfectly execute those 4 pillars, the first prompt you type is almost never the final product you end up using.
Very rarely. It is rarely a one-shot process. Which brings us to the refinement phase of the Google framework. You have established the initial parameters, but how do you shape the conversation to get the exact result you need?
Right. The Google document outlines a methodology for this called the 3 Cs. Be concise, be clear, and be consistent.
Let's unpack the first one. Be concise.
Okay.
Being concise means avoiding the temptation to jam a massive, multi-step, incredibly complex request into a single prompt block.
Guilty. I do this all the time.
We all do. But if a prompt becomes too convoluted with too many conditional clauses and contradictory instructions, it overloads the processing context. The model will inevitably start dropping some of your instructions.
Usually focusing only on the very first or very last thing you asked it to do, right?
Exactly. You have to keep the instructions sharp.
Okay, so the second C is be clear, which essentially means avoiding ambiguity. The force document specifically calls out the danger of using lazy prompts like, make this better.
Oh, make this better is perhaps the worst instruction you can give an AI.
Because better is a completely subjective human concept.
Right.
To a lawyer, better means more legally defensible and precise. To a comedian, better means punchier and more absurd. When you tell the AI to make it better, you are forcing a mathematical model to guess your unstated subjective intentions.
Ambiguity flattens the probability space. You
Yeah.
need to provide highly specific directional vectors.
Directional vectors are
Yeah, instead of make this better, the instruction must be make this more persuasive by focusing on the cost-saving benefits, or rewrite this to be understood by a high school student, or even just shorten this entirely to under 200 words.
Got it. Be specific.
Yeah.
So the third C is be consistent. And the source material provides a brilliant, subtle detail here. The rule is to keep your vocabulary identical throughout the entire chat session.
This one trips people up constantly.
Like, if you introduce a document and refer to it as a spreadsheet in your initial prompt, you cannot switch to calling it a matrix or a data tab 3 prompts later.
It feels like an insignificant semantic difference to a human, but it can completely derail a large language model.
You know, I was trying to visualize why this breaks the machine. And imagine you are playing a highly complex strategic board game with someone.
Okay.
Halfway through the game, you arbitrarily decide to change the names of the pieces. You start calling the knight a horse, or you refer to the rook as a castle.
Right.
A human opponent would roll their eyes, use context clues, and figure out what you mean. But the AI is taking you literally.
Completely literally.
When you introduce the word horse, the AI thinks, wait, where did this horse come from? Is this a completely new piece on the board? Did the rules of the game just change? You are fracturing the established reality of the conversation.
That is an excellent way to conceptualize it. The AI is continuously mapping the relationships of words within the specific, isolated context of your active chat window.
Yeah.
If you introduce a new synonym for an existing variable, the model might assign it a completely new vector space, treating it as a brand new element. It fragments the context you worked so hard to build.
So be concise, be clear, and be consistent.
Exactly.
But let's say you follow the 3 Cs perfectly. You've nailed the persona, task, context, and format. And the output the AI hands back is still, it's just slightly off. It's missing the mark.
And this is where the true skill of prompting emerges. It's the art of iteration.
Yeah.
The Google Masterclass emphasizes that AI output should almost always serve as a starting point. It's a rough draft, not a finalized product. If the output is flawed, you iterate. And they offer specific, highly effective techniques for doing so.
Let's walk through those iteration techniques for the listener.
So the primary technique is breaking up complex tasks. If you are dealing with a massive, multifaceted project, do not ask the model to generate the entire solution at once. Ask for smaller, sequential pieces.
The source material gives a great example of this. If you want the AI to help you overhaul your business strategy, you don't just prompt, write a new business plan. You break it down.
Right.
Step 1. Explain the key principles of effective corporate decision-making. You let the AI generate that framework, you review it, ensure it aligns with your philosophy, and then you move to step 2.
Which would be something like, now using those specific principles you just outlined, how can I apply them to restructure my weekly executive status meeting?
Approaching the problem sequentially like that accomplishes 2 vital things, doesn't it?
It does. First, it significantly reduces the cognitive load on the model for any single prompt, which inherently leads to higher quality, more focused outputs.
Right.
Second, it allows you, the human operator, to course correct along the way. If step 1 goes off the rails and generates a framework you hate, You can fix it immediately before it pollutes step 2 and step 3.
It transforms the interaction from a slot machine where you just like pull a lever and hope for the best into an actual collaborative conversation.
Yes, a collaboration.
Okay, so what is the next iteration technique?
Adding constraints. We already touched on this briefly regarding the persona, but you must aggressively apply constraints to the task and format as well. You specify hard requirements to force the model to narrow its focus and eliminate generic solutions.
Give me an example of that.
Okay, for instance, if you are asking the AI for marketing solutions and you leave it unconstrained, it might suggest launching a $1 million Super Bowl ad campaign.
Which is technically a solution.
Technically, yes, but entirely useless to you. But if you iterate and add the constraint, provide 3 marketing solutions that can be implemented within a single week, utilizing our existing staff with an absolute budget of $0.
Extreme constraints breed extreme creativity, even for statistical models.
Exactly. By boxing the AI in with strict parameters, you force it to search for highly practical, unconventional solutions that fit your actual reality.
I love that. And the final iteration technique the Google text highlights, and honestly, this is arguably the most powerful, is adding references.
It is incredibly powerful.
I love this concept.
Mhm.
The example they use in the source is writing a promotional social media post for a local music festival.
Okay.
Instead of spending paragraphs agonizingly trying to describe the exact fun, folksy, but energetic tone you want in your prompt, you just paste in a reference text.
Right.
You provide an existing piece of writing that already has the exact vibe you want. You say, write a new post, but make it sound exactly like this. Where mountains meet music. Indie Rocks Festival returns. Your favorite local bands plus national acts. Good eats and sleep under the stars.
Providing a reference text acts as an incredibly potent anchor for the model. You are giving the AI a literal template for the exact tone, vocabulary, cadence, and formatting you desire.
It completely removes the ambiguity.
It does. You don't have to guess how the AI interprets the word energetic because you are showing it an explicit mathematical example of your definition of energetic.
It is the ultimate application of show, don't tell.
Perfectly said.
Okay, so we now have the framework, the 3 C's, and the iteration techniques. But the source material includes a massive warning sign here, a flashing red light for anyone using these tools. We cannot blindly trust the final output.
Abdicating your critical thinking to the machine is the most dangerous thing you can do.
Yeah.
These models are not infallible. They are predictive text engines, not truth engines. They can, and regularly will, generate catastrophic errors with absolute confidence. You must evaluate the output rigorously.
The Google Guide outlines 4 specific evaluation metrics we have to run every output through: accuracy, bias, relevancy, and consistency. Let's tackle accuracy first. This is the phenomenon of the AI hallucinating facts, right?
Yes, hallucinations occur when the AI generates information that sounds highly plausible, syntactically perfect, but is entirely factually incorrect.
It just makes things up.
It does. This happens frequently when the model is asked to solve a highly novel problem, or if it is trying to bridge gaps in its original training data. It doesn't know how to say, I don't know, so it predicts what the answer should look like.
That's dangerous.
Very. You have to independently verify any statistics, historical dates, legal precedents, or scientific claims it generates.
The second metric is bias, and this requires us to look at the data these models ingest. Does the output unfairly favor one demographic, perspective, or ideology simply because of the math underlying its training data?
It is a critical evaluation step. These models are trained on vast scrapings of the internet, and the internet is fundamentally heavily skewed by historical human data.
Of course.
If you prompt an AI to write a story about a typical CEO, the mathematical probability will likely default to generating a specific gender or demographic profile unless you explicitly prompt it to do otherwise.
So the model isn't making a moral judgment.
No, it is just executing the statistical weights of its training data. As the user, you have to actively review the output to ensure the final product aligns with fairness, objectivity, and your own standards.
It's just reflecting the mirror back at us.
Exactly.
The third metric is relevancy. Did the model actually answer the prompt you gave it, or did it latch onto a minor keyword in your context and go off on a massive tangent?
That happens all the time if the context is too messy.
Right. And finally, consistency. Did it maintain the requested tone and style throughout the entire response? Or did it start out sounding like a corporate lawyer and finish sounding like a 19th century poet?
Applying those 4 metrics, accuracy, bias, relevancy, consistency, it requires active, engaged human oversight. You are the final filter.
Speaking of things breaking down, There is a crucial technical rule mentioned in the text about how to physically manage these chat sessions to prevent the AI from getting confused.
Oh, yes.
It centers around a concept called context windows.
Mismanaging the context window is perhaps the most common technical error that leads to degraded AI performance.
The source lays down a hard rule here. If you are 20 minutes into a chat session brainstorming marketing messaging for a winter coat, and suddenly you decide you want to pivot to brainstorming new product ideas for a summer line, you absolutely must start a brand new chat.
You cannot just type the new topic into the existing text box.
But why not? To understand why this is a hard rule, we have to look at the architecture of the context window, right?
Right. The context window is effectively the AI's short-term working memory for that specific isolated conversation. Every single time you hit enter and send a new prompt, the AI does not just read that single new sentence.
It has to reread everything.
Everything. It has to reprocess the entire history of that chat session, every prompt you sent, and every response it generated to calculate the next prediction.
It's carrying the entire weight of the conversation forward every single time you hit enter.
Exactly. So if you spend 20 minutes establishing a deep, nuanced context about a heavy winter coat marketing campaign, and then you suddenly ask it for a recipe for a chocolate cake in that exact same chat window,
It is inevitably going to try to weave wool and thermal insulation into the cake batter.
precisely, it mixes the vector space. The architecture of the model assumes that everything contained within a single chat window is fundamentally related.
Because you put it in the same box.
Right. It will desperately try to draw mathematical connections between the winter coat campaign and the chocolate cake recipe because they share the same context window. It completely scrambles the predictive text generation, leading to bizarre, misguided responses.
That paints such a clear picture. If you think of a context window like a physical workbench, if you keep piling different projects, different blueprints, and different tools onto the same small table, eventually things are going to get buried, knocked over, or mixed up.
You have to sweep the table clean.
New topic, new chat, period. Now, before we transition into the specific software tools, there's a massive pro tip from the Google text regarding workflow efficiency: the prompt library.
Oh, this is huge. If you are not building a prompt library, you are essentially starting from scratch every single day, which defeats the entire purpose of automation.
The text argues that when you finally nail a prompt, when you get the persona perfectly tuned, the context locked in, the format exact, and you've iterated it until the output is flawless, do not just close the browser tab and lose that work.
Save the prompt. Document it. Give it a title.
You extract the specific variables and create templates with fill-in-the-blank brackets.
For example, act as a persona, analyze this data set, and write a format focusing on key objective.
And then you share that library with your team. You turn prompting from this dark ad hoc art that only one person knows how to do into a repeatable, scalable science for the entire organization.
You have now established the foundational layer. You understand the language of the machine.
Which means we are fully armed. We know how to communicate with the blind librarian. Now, let's look at what happens when we unleash that librarian into the actual software of our daily lives.
This is the fun part.
We are pivoting to the B10X lecture, focusing on how to reclaim that 40% of our day. And we have to start at the bedrock of any professional's life: how you manage your schedule and your tasks.
Because if you do not have systematic control over your time and your task prioritization, no amount of advanced AI generation will save you.
The B10X lecture outlines what we can categorize as the organizational stack. Let's set up a scenario to walk through this stack.
Okay.
Let's say I am managing a massive product launch. We're launching a new line of ergonomic office chairs next Friday.
High stress.
Very high stress. My workflow is pure chaos. I have design files, marketing copy, manufacturing updates, and 50 different micro tasks floating around. The first tool the lecture points to for this is Coda.
Coda.
The text describes it as a highly versatile workspace that merges documents, spreadsheets, and collaborative task management. But the feature that stands out is their AI-driven templates, specifically the AI Eisenhower matrix.
The Eisenhower matrix is a decades-old, highly proven time management framework. It forces you to take your chaotic list of tasks and plot them on a 2x2 grid based on urgency and importance.
Right, so if a task is both urgent and important, you do it immediately.
If it is important but not urgent, you schedule it for later.
If it's urgent but not actually important, like responding to a minor Slack message, you delegate it. And if it's neither urgent nor important, you delete it.
The framework is brilliant in theory. The historical failure point, however, is the friction of execution. Manually evaluating 50 microtasks and agonizing over where they belong on a matrix takes immense mental energy and time.
Time you do not have when you're trying to launch a product.
Exactly. This is where Coda's AI integration fundamentally changes the workflow.
But I have to push back here. How can Coda's AI possibly know what my boss considers urgent or important? It doesn't sit in our strategy meetings. Doesn't relying on an AI to prioritize my work risk completely misaligning my day?
That is a highly valid skepticism, and it brings us back to the necessity of context. The AI in Coda isn't magically guessing your priorities. You have to set the parameters. You map the context.
So I have to tell it the rules first.
Yes, you tell the system, any task tagged with manufacturing delay is critical importance. Any task assigned by the CEO is high urgency. Once you define those logic rules, the AI dynamically sorts the incoming flood of data.
Oh, I see.
You dump the raw tasks in, and the AI visualizes them on the matrix instantly, doing the heavy mental lifting of categorization based on your established rules.
It's enforcing my own rules faster than I ever could.
Oh.
Okay, that makes sense. The next tool in the organizational stack is Notion.
Notion is incredibly ubiquitous right now.
Yeah, the text calls it the ultimate all-in-one workspace. But how does injecting AI into Notion actually change the day-to-day experience of our hypothetical chair launch?
Historically, Notion was essentially a very elegant digital filing cabinet. You put information in, you took it out. But with its natively integrated AI, it transforms from a static repository into an active participant in your workflow.
How so? Like, what does it actually do?
Imagine you are inside your Notion project database for the chair launch. You have a page full of raw, messy bullet points from a brainstorming session. Previously, you would have to copy those notes, open ChatGPT in a new tab, write a prompt, copy the generated text, bring it back to Notion, and format it.
Which is like 5 minutes of context switching.
Now, without ever leaving the document, you simply highlight the text and ask the Notion AI to synthesize those messy notes into a structured 3-page project proposal. Or you highlight a checklist of completed tasks and ask it to instantly draft a status update email to the marketing team.
Centralization. It completely eliminates the friction of context switching. You aren't constantly copying and pasting between 5 different tabs.
The intelligence lives exactly where the data already lives.
That's huge. But the tool in this section that I find the most aggressive, and I mean that in a good way, is Reclaim AI.
Oh, Reclaim AI. It represents a profound paradigm shift in how we relate to our own calendars.
The source describes it as an AI-powered scheduling engine that integrates directly into Google Calendar. It goes far beyond just displaying your meetings.
Much further.
It actively automates the blocking of time for what they call deep work. It automatically finds ideal meeting slots, and it auto-reschedules tasks on the fly to avoid conflicts. The best analogy I can think of is that Reclaim AI acts like a highly aggressive, heavily armed personal bouncer for your time.
The bouncer analogy is highly accurate for how it functions algorithmically.
You tell the bouncer, listen, I need 3 hours of uninterrupted time this week to finalize the pricing strategy for these chairs. The bouncer looks at the chaotic mess of your calendar, finds the optimal open space, and slams a concrete block onto Thursday from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. No one gets in. It defends that time.
But the reality of corporate life is that static calendars do not survive contact with the enemy. What happens when the CEO suddenly drops a mandatory all-hands crisis meeting right in the middle of your Thursday block at 2 p.m.?
Well, in the old system, my deep work block is just dead. I have to manually go into the calendar, delete my work block, accept the meeting, and then hopefully remember to manually find another 3 hours later in the week.
Which you probably won't do.
Let's be honest, I definitely won't do it. But with Reclaim AI, the bouncer doesn't just give up. The moment the CEO's meeting overwrites the schedule, the AI algorithm instantly recalculates. Okay, we lost Thursday at 2 p.m. I am automatically scanning the rest of the week. I found a gap on Friday morning, and I'm moving the deep work block there.
The time is continuously protected without you having to actively manage it.
Right.
If we tie this back to the Google prompting framework, specifically the rule of consistency automated scheduling is the ultimate manifestation of consistency in your life.
Maybe.
By delegating the Tetris game of calendar management to Reclaim AI, you maintain the regular execution of your priorities without the immense mental fatigue of manually dragging and dropping boxes every time the day shifts.
Right.
You make the strategic decision once, I need time to focus on pricing, and the machine consistently enforces that decision against the chaos of the week.
It completely removes the emotion and the anxiety from scheduling. It just relentlessly executes the math of your priorities. So Coda organizes the tasks, Notion centralizes the data, and Reclaim AI protects the time to do the work.
That's the stack.
But let's push this further. Time management is great, but what if we stop managing the work and the AI just does the work for us?
Now we are crossing the threshold from time management into true workflow automation. We are talking about automating the invisible work.
The invisible work. The endless copying of data from one spreadsheet to another app. The B10X lecture introduces a platform called Integrately to solve this. The text states that it utilizes APIs to connect over 1,000 different software applications, allowing them to communicate and trigger actions seamlessly.
It acts as the invisible connective tissue between isolated software ecosystems that natively have no way to talk to each other.
The lecture provides a highly specific tactical example of how this works, and I want to trace the data path on this because it perfectly illustrates the power of what we are discussing.
Let's trace it.
The scenario is setting up an automated condition where if an expense over $8,000 is logged into a specific Google Sheet, an instant email alert is generated and sent via Gmail to the finance director.
Okay, let's dissect the manual alternative to that workflow first to really understand the value of the automation.
Sure.
In a traditional, non-automated setup, a human project manager has to bear the cognitive burden of remembering to open that specific Google Sheet every single morning.
Right, which is already a fail point.
Yes. They have to manually scroll through dozens of new entries, visually scan column D for any number greater than $8,000, copy the specific details of that row, open a new tab for Gmail, draft an email to the finance director, paste the data, ensure the formatting isn't broken, and hit send.
And the psychological cost of that is massive, because if that manager gets busy on a Friday and forgets to check the sheet, a critical $8,000 expense sits unreviewed all weekend.
And that causes problems.
It creates this low-level, constant hum of anxiety. You are always wondering, did I forget to check the dashboard? Did I miss something important? You're using your brain as an alarm clock, which is a terrible use of a human brain.
By implementing Integrately, you entirely eliminate the human middleman and the associated anxiety. You define the conditional logic parameters exactly one time.
The rule.
Yes, the rule. If Google Sheet cell in column D is greater than 8,000, then extract row data and trigger Gmail template X. The system monitors that condition invisibly via API 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The moment the condition is met, the execution happens instantaneously. The data handshake occurs without a human ever looking at it.
The project manager just wakes up, checks their own email, and sees an automated alert that an $8,000 expense was logged and finance was already notified. The machine handled the vigilance.
Exactly.
That single automation might only save 10 minutes a day, but it saves hours of mental bandwidth. That is how you reclaim the 40%.
It really is.
But if we are talking about reclaiming lost time, we have to talk about the absolute largest black hole of productivity in the modern corporate world: meetings.
The ultimate synchronous time sink.
The B10X lecture dedicates a significant portion to meeting productivity. And let's be honest, the standard way we handle meetings is absurd.
Completely flawed.
The expectation that an employee can frantically take detailed, accurate notes while simultaneously actively listening, synthesizing complex information, and providing strategic input to a conversation.
Yeah.
It's biologically flawed.
It is.
You either produce terrible notes or you provide terrible input. You cannot dual process both tasks effectively.
The cognitive load required to transcribe speech actively degrades your ability to critically analyze the content of that speech.
The lecture introduces an entire suite of tools to eradicate this problem. First, there is Otter.ai, which provides highly accurate live transcription and automated summaries, integrating right alongside Zoom or Google Meet.
Which is table stakes now.
Right. Then we look at Firefly's AI, which takes it a step further. It doesn't just transcribe. It uses an LLM to automatically scan the transcript and highlight the specific action items and commitments made during the call.
It extracts the tactical deliverables from the conversational noise.
Exactly. Then there is Crisp AI, which is fascinating for remote workers. It provides real-time bidirectional noise cancellation and transcription, specifically engineered to ensure audio fidelity even in chaotic environments, like taking a critical client call from a busy airport terminal.
Oh, that's incredibly useful.
And finally, Auto AI, which records the meeting and maps out the full conversational dynamics, providing detailed, easy-to-edit speaker identification. You know exactly who promised what.
The implementation of these tools fundamentally alters the architectural reality of a meeting.
But I have to stop here because this is where my alarm bells start ringing.
Okay, let's hear it.
If tools like Fireflies and Otter are tracking literally every single word spoken in a room, and the AI is perfectly, ruthlessly extracting a searchable transcript of every single casual commitment I make, doesn't that inherently change the psychology of the room?
How so?
You can't just nod and say, yeah, I'll look into that next week to move the conversation along. The machine logged it. The machine put it on a permanent to-do list for the boss to see. Are we just building a high-tech surveillance state inside our own conference rooms? Does this destroy the safety of casual brainstorming?
That is a highly sophisticated pushback, and it identifies the exact tension inherent in this technology. You are correct that it changes the psychology of the room, but we need to radically reframe how we view that change.
I'm listening.
What you are describing as surveillance is actually the necessary transition from synchronous pressure to asynchronous freedom.
Walk me through that. How is a perfect transcript freedom?
Consider the synchronous pressure of a traditional meeting. You are sitting in the room, and the entire burden of the interaction rests on your real-time processing power.
Right.
You have to remember the context, performatively show that you are paying attention, mentally track your own action items so you don't drop the ball later, and try to think of something smart to say. The cognitive friction is exhausting.
That's why everyone leaves a 1-hour meeting feeling like they need a nap.
Precisely. When you introduce a tool like Fireflies into the ecosystem, yes, it creates an indelible administrative record, but in doing so, it completely removes the synchronous pressure. You are granted the asynchronous freedom to just exist in the moment. You can look your colleague directly in the eye. You can genuinely, deeply listen to their complex proposal without the rising panic of realizing you need to write it all down. You can be fully strategically present in the room because you trust that the AI is flawlessly handling the administrative memory of the interaction.
Okay, I see the angle. It's not a surveillance tool to punish me. It's a delegation tool. I am offloading my highly fallible short-term memory to a server.
Exactly. And regarding the anxiety of having your commitments track professional accountability is not an inherent negative. The friction and stress in our jobs usually arise when we forget what we casually committed to, and then we have to scramble in a panic to catch up when the deadline hits.
That's true, the Sunday night panic.
By having the AI instantly surface a clean list of action items, you can immediately organize your post-meeting workflow in Coda or Notion. You are never guessing what you owe your team. It forces clarity.
It requires a level of maturity in how a culture uses the tool. But the ability to actually listen during a meeting without holding a pen sounds like a massive relief.
It is a game changer.
So let's look at the board. We have automated our scheduling and task sorting with Coda and Reclaim. We have automated our data transfers with Integrately. We have fully automated our meeting notes and action items with Fireflies.
The administrative mud has been systematically cleared from the workflow.
Which brings us to the ultimate question of this deep dive. What do we actually do with the time we just bought back?
That's the real question.
If we have successfully reclaimed 40% of our week, say 16 hours, we now have the bandwidth for high-value, deep, strategic work. We finally have time for creation. The final section of the B10X lecture focuses entirely on what we can call the creation engine.
How can AI assist not just in management, but in the actual production of value?
Right. And the most immediate application of this is writing assistance. The source mentions a tool that I think is brilliantly simple, Compose AI. It is a Chrome extension, and the specific mechanism they highlight is that you simply type double slashes, literally hitting the / key twice, like in any text field anywhere on the web, and it instantly summons real-time generative writing assistance.
It's so smooth.
If you are in Gmail, you type Potine and tell it to draft the client response. If you're in a Notion document, you type Okine to tell it to expand a bullet point into a paragraph.
The brilliance of Compose AI is the reduction of friction. You do not have to break your flow state to open a separate ChatGPT tab, authenticate, write a prompt, and copy the text back.
You're just doing it right there.
Right. The intelligence is embedded directly at the point of creation, exactly where your cursor already is.
But if you need something significantly more robust than a quick email response, like let's go back to our ergonomic chair launch and I need to write a highly technical multi-page launch strategy, the lecture points us toward utilizing custom GPTs inside the ChatGPT ecosystem.
And this circles us perfectly back to the very beginning of our discussion, the Google prompting framework.
How so?
A custom GPT is fundamentally a prepackaged, permanently saved persona, task, context, and format. Instead of writing a massive prompt every time, You pre-prompt the model once.
Oh, I see.
You build a custom GPT and give it its permanent instructions. You are the senior marketing strategist for our ergonomic furniture brand. Your task is to write launch strategies. Here's a 50-page PDF containing all of our historical brand context, our tone of voice guidelines, and our target demographics. Always format your output with executive summaries and bulleted action plans.
You essentially build a highly specialized employee.
You save that configuration. Then, whenever you need a new strategy document, you do not have to rewrite the complex prompt or re-explain the brand. You simply open that specific custom GPT, hand it the raw data about the new chair, and it executes perfectly within the constraints you already built.
It is exactly like having specialized departments of those blind librarians that you have permanently trained.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay, moving from writing generation into deep research. The lecture highlights two highly distinct tools here, NotebookLM and Grok.
NotebookLM is a fascinating project developed by Google, and it represents a fundamentally different architecture than a standard tool like ChatGPT.
Explain the difference. Why use NotebookLM instead of just asking ChatGPT?
It comes down to a process called Retrieval Augmented Generation, or RAG. NotebookLM is strictly grounded in the specific documents you upload to it. It creates a walled garden.
A walled garden?
Yes. Let's say you upload 10 dense 100-page PDF reports detailing 5 years of user feedback on office chairs. When you ask NotebookLM a question, it is physically restricted from searching the wider internet to find the answer. It extracts insights, synthesizes themes, and generates content only from the documents inside its walled garden.
So it completely eliminates the hallucination problem we talked about earlier.
Exactly. It will accidentally invent a statistic about chair safety from some random blog post because it doesn't even know the blog post exists. Its entire universe is just the 10 PDFs you gave it.
It is an unparalleled tool for securely synthesizing vast amounts of highly specific, proprietary internal data.
It is. And on the other end of the spectrum, the text highlights Grok.
Right. Grok is highlighted specifically for its capacity to compile comprehensive research reports by rapidly scanning and analyzing across the live, wider internet. It pulls in diverse perspectives and provides a broad overview of a topic, importantly including the citations for where it pulled the data from.
So you use NotebookLM for deep diving safely into your own internal data, and you use Grok for surveying the external landscape of the market.
Okay, the final category of the creation engine is video and multimedia. And honestly, this is where the capabilities of the technology start to cross the line into what feels like science fiction.
The velocity of advancement in the multimedia generation space is astonishing.
The lecture lists several platforms here, video and in-video. The text states these platforms allow you to take a plain text script, perhaps one generated by your custom GPT, and automatically convert it into a fully produced video.
Just from text.
Just text. The AI analyzes the text, automatically pulls relevant stock footage, generates animations, transitions, and burns in subtitles. It automates the entire video editing bay.
It democratizes high-level multimedia production. A single product manager can now generate a steady stream of engaging social media content without needing to requisition an entire video production team or learn complex editing software.
That is impressive enough, but then we get to the voice and avatar tools and things get weird.
You do get weird.
11 Labs. The text points to this as the premier voice cloning technology. You upload a short, clean audio sample of your own voice, and the AI maps the specific cadence, pitch, and resonance.
It's remarkably accurate.
Once the clone is built, you can give the system any text script, and it will generate an audio file of you reading it perfectly.
And a platform called Hagen takes the exact same concept and applies it to video.
Right. Hagen allows you to upload a short, high-definition video clip of yourself speaking into the camera. It analyzes your facial movement and creates an AI avatar that perfectly mimics your likeness.
It's your digital twin.
You type a script into Hagen, and it renders a brand new video of you speaking the words, complete with flawless lip syncing and natural facial expressions. You could create an entire hour-long video presentation for the chair launch without ever once turning on a camera or setting up a microphone.
It represents the ultimate scalability of your personal physical presence.
But here is where we have to stop and really unpack the implications. I have a massive philosophical pushback on this.
Okay, let's hear the pushback.
If we follow this workflow to its logical conclusion, I use 11 Labs to perfectly clone my voice. I use Hagen to generate a photorealistic video of me delivering a presentation, And the script for that presentation was written entirely by a custom GPT based on data pulled by Notebook LM.
Right.
At what point in that chain of events is it no longer me communicating with my team or my clients? Have I just completely outsourced my own humanity and authenticity to a stack of software?
That is the essential defining question of the AI era. You are identifying the deep tension between the drive for extreme corporate efficiency and the fundamental human need for authenticity.
Because if I send a personalized video to a major client explaining the new chair launch, and 6 months later they find out they were watching an AI puppet of me while I was actually playing golf, they're going to feel deeply betrayed. The trust is gone.
The risk to trust is incredibly high, and that is why the intention and the strategy behind the tools matter vastly more than the capabilities of the tools themselves.
How do you mean?
The goal of this stack is efficiency, yes. But if we trace this all the way back to the very first thing we discussed, the Google prompting framework, the crucial load-bearing elements were the persona and the context.
Right, the parameters we set.
When you build your custom GPTs, when you curate the PDFs for Notebook LM, when you painstakingly iterate the prompt to get the exact strategic angle you want for the script, you are infusing the machine with your unique, irreplicable strategic mind.
So the prompt is the actual work.
Exactly. You are the one setting the hard constraints based on your years of specialized expertise. The AI stack, the script generation, the voice cloning, the video rendering is simply the execution layer. It is assembling the pixels and the sound waves based on your explicit strategic instructions.
So you are arguing that authenticity doesn't inherently live in the physical, biological act of my vocal cords vibrating to speak into a microphone. The authenticity lives in the strategy, the thought process, and the specific constraints of the prompt that generated the thought in the first place.
That is exactly the framework. The AI is not replacing your unique perspective. It is acting as a highly leveraged tool to amplify and distribute your perspective at scale.
Wow.
To use an analogy, you maintain the authenticity by strictly controlling the inputs. You are the director of the film. The AI tools are the cast, the crew, the lighting department, and the cameras.
I really like that framing. I am the director. And if the director's asleep at the wheel, or if the director just yells, "make a good movie," and walks away, the final product is going to be soulless and terrible, no matter how advanced the cameras are.
Exactly.
But if the director obsessively controls the vision, the output remains theirs.
It does.
So as we bring this deep dive to a close, let's synthesize the journey we have just taken. We started by confronting the highly uncomfortable reality that 40% of our professional lives are lost to the mundane repetition of routine tasks.
The invisible drain of the administrative mud.
To reclaim that time, we cannot just buy software. We need a rigorous two-part approach. The AI tools we explored, Coda for task visualization, Reclaim AI to aggressively guard our calendars, Integrately to silently move our data, and Hagen to scale our presence. Those tools are the engine.
They provide the raw, world-changing power.
But the Google prompting framework mastering persona, task, context, format, and adhering strictly to the 3 C's of being concise, clear, and consistent, that is the steering wheel.
And strapping a massive engine to a chassis without a steering wheel is just a guaranteed way to crash at high speed.
The overarching message distilled from the B10X lecture is crystal clear. Embracing AI is not about preparing to replace yourself. It is about aggressively automating the mundane so you can free up your time to do the specific things a statistical model cannot do.
Like generating novel creative ideas, innovating new systems, and engaging in high-level strategic work.
It is about engineering a more productive, significantly less stressed version of your professional self. And to ensure this deep dive actually translates into a material change in your workflow, the source material provides very specific, actionable next steps.
We want to issue a direct challenge to you, the listener, based on these guidelines.
I love a practical challenge. What is the roadmap for this week?
First, do not try to adopt the entire stack today. Pick exactly 1 or 2 task management tools to experiment with. Open Coda or Notion and set up a basic workspace. Or simply install Reclaim AI on your calendar and let the bouncer start guarding a few hours of deep work.
Start small and observe the friction it removes.
Exactly.
Second step, automate one single routine process. Look at a platform like Integrately. Find one tiny, annoying thing you do every day, like manually emailing a team when a spreadsheet updates or moving an attachment from an email to a folder, and set up the trigger.
Once you experience the psychological relief of an invisible task flawlessly completing itself without your intervention, the value of this system becomes undeniable.
It's magic. What is the third step?
Third, try utilizing Compose AI or a similarly-generative tool specifically for writing assistance. Practice using the double-slash shortcut to draft a few low-stakes emails. Feel how it completely removes the paralysis of staring at a blinking cursor on a blank document.
And finally, the lecture strongly encourages you to share your productivity gains, perhaps on a platform like LinkedIn or just internally with your team. Note the specific tool you used, the prompt you designed, and what you learned.
Documenting and sharing your successful prompts builds the collective intelligence of your network. Knowledge compounds exponentially when it is shared.
Absolutely. Now, before we sign off, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over on your own. It is a concept that wasn't explicitly laid out in the sources, but it is the logical extreme of everything we've discussed today, and my mind keeps returning to it.
Let's explore it.
Let's assume the absolute best-case scenario. Let's say everyone listening adopts these tools. We all master the nuance of the Google prompting framework. We all set up our APIs with Integrately. We all deploy Reclaim AI.
Okay.
And we all successfully, magically save 40% of our workday. What actually happens to the baseline macroeconomic expectation of human output?
Oh, that's the big question.
If the corporate factory line suddenly moves almost twice as fast because the AI is handling the mud, does the 40-hour work week finally shrink to a comfortable 24 hours, giving us our lives back? Or does the market simply adjust the goalposts and the world suddenly expects us to produce 40% more work in the exact same amount of time?
It is the defining economic question of the AI revolution. When the tools make us infinitely more efficient, do we actually get our time back, or do we just raise the baseline of exhaustion?
It is something heavy to think about as you sit down to set up your very first automation this week. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the muddy waters of daily workflows. We hope you walk away with the blueprints to build a bridge right over them.
Keep questioning your assumptions, keep rigorously refining your prompts, and keep exploring the leverage these tools provide.
We will see you next time.